Express, and in case you're joining us now, welcome aboard. It's now 23 minutes to 7 o'clock. Later on, we're going to see whether we can catch up with our reporter, Patrick Amimo, who is going to be giving us updates on what's happening on the National Prayer Day. Just in case you didn't know, today happens to be the National Prayer Day, and I'm sure there's a lot to pray for. And the question that we're interacting with you this morning is whether you feel that our leaders are genuinely seeking divine intervention, or is it another PR exercise, or just, you know, a get-together where we do things that we think are good, but really there's no follow-up to that. Are our leaders genuinely seeking divine intervention on this National Day of Prayer? The hashtag is Morning Express KTN. If you'd like to tweet, it's at KTN News, or you can tweet me directly or Zinzi, and that's at Michael G. Gitonga or at Zinzi_K. And we'll be more than happy to hear what you have to say. We'll be reading through your comments as we go along. For now, it's time for us to look at the dailies, and let me start off by introducing the panelists that we have here this morning. I'll start with my extreme left, where we have Honorable Samuel Atandi, who's a member of parliament for Alego Usonga. And I was cautioned that I must say Alego Usonga, because Alego inasonga.
Thank you.
Welcome, and thank you. It's good to have you. We also have Philip Magal, who's an advocate.
Morning, viewers.
And last but not least, we have Ambrose Weda, who is also an advocate. Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, gentlemen, we'll go straight to the dailies, and we'll start as usual with the Standard. And the headlines is proceeds of graft. And there's a number of, well, there's a picture here. Well, we'll see that on your screen shortly, where you can see the proceeds of graft, certain items that have been flagged. And this is in case those who have been mentioned, those who are in court, found guilty, then some of these assets will be seized and repossessed, and hopefully proceeds directed to the right path. Let me start with you, Honorable Atandi. Your thoughts on this war and the fact that the government this time seems to be a little bit more serious and taking action faster. There's already assets here that have been seized, cars, malls, there's houses. Your thoughts?
Thank you, Gitonga. Let me say that I have chosen to take a cautious approach on these investigations because, one, I know that fighting corruption is just not going to be about sending a few people to court. It is much more than that. So I want to say that, well, we appreciate the efforts and the energy that has been displayed by the new DPP. I think he's doing a good job, and I think he also needs to prove himself. But from where I sit, and this is based on experience, I doubt whether it is early to celebrate. It's too early for us.
Why are we so skeptical? I mean, there's already some action that we can see. If they were quiet, if nothing was happening, I'm sure, well, we'd say that nothing is going on.
The actions are not, they are not extraordinary. Mm-hmm. We've seen it before. We have seen these investigations before, and we know where they have ended. Mm-hmm. And what I have said is that, you know, corruption, especially in this magnitude, they do not just happen. Mm-hmm. And if you begin to take small people to court, mm-hmm. auditors, you know, even the director for NYS, in my view, is a small fish in this, mm-hmm. in this kind of corruption. Mm-hmm. Where is the CS? Where are people, big people in treasury? Because for humongous amounts of money to be released mm-hmm. to purchase air, for instance, really it is not something that can be done by small people. Mm. And we have said that Kenya has a history of where corruption, big corruption cases emerge when we are approaching elections.
Okay.
There's a relationship.
There's a relationship
between some of these big scandals and elections. Mm-hmm. And you know the people who are looking for political seats are not these small people.
Okay.
So we want to see. We want to see. We are not yet at that stage where I can be able to say that, look, I'm now very comfortable with what's going on, mm-hmm. and I think we are heading in the right direction. No, I have to wait.
You have to wait.
Yes.
Ambrose Weda?
I think we have a cause to celebrate. Number one, we must appreciate the country is getting angry. I am angry, you are angry, Mheshimiwa is angry, I assume, and my brother, and the country is getting angry. The first step we'll need as a country to stamp out corruption is to be hostile to it. Mm-hmm. Previously, we have been electing these people. That's why he says corruption is related to elections, because people steal, they come with money, we dance for them, we give them our sisters to marry, and so on and so forth. But when we get angry, we'll be able to see, because we see these people. It cannot be that one day in the morning, I am on Matatu. In the evening, I have a chopper waiting, I have all this, and my people cannot say, tell us, are you selling drugs, or you are selling maize, or what are you doing? So before we elect, we want explanation. So I think we are getting angry. And you can see the president is already mad, and that is good for the country. So we expect our members of parliament, as you go back to Alego Usonga today, to psych people to be angry at corruption, not to adore people who have stolen money from them and to elect them. So let us have hope. Let us see that these arrests are good, and there should be more arrests, and then you come up with the legislation through which, if I have instant wealth, either I explain it or it is investigated.
All right. Yes. Let me come to you, Philip, and let's look at page 10, because it's still something that borders on corruption, and this is to do with NCPB, and trader was paid 333 million. Again, another case where we see loads of money which was supposed to go to the farmers and benefit the farmer, hence growing our economy, giving the Kenyan, Wanjiko as it were, you know, empowering them. But money, of course, being filtered through cartels and people who possibly have never even farmed in their lives.
Yes, and that is, again, the tragedy of our times. Corruption seems to have taken root in the country, and it is in all sectors. NCPB, of all the places where, you know, if you go to North Rift, that is the bloodline of most of the maize farmers. These people toil the whole year, deliver their maize in the NCPB, expect some payment so that they can plow it back. But as it is right now, farmers have nowhere to take their maize. Those who took it there have not been paid. And we can see this fellow was paid, almost paid 333 million upfront. That is what it means being a Kenyan, and calls into question many other issues. The genuineness of the government when it talks of the big four. I mean, food is one of them. If you mistreat your farmers, how then do you expect to meet such a key developmental agenda? What is happening in NCPB? We've seen people arrests being made in NYS, so on and so forth. Why has somebody been arrested or suspended in NCPB? I think we all need to focus on NCPB and all the other cases of corruption steaming up. Like my fellow panelists have said, you know, there is reason to be skeptical about the fight against corruption. But then I think this time it is a totally different ballgame. We can see the president is serious. We can see we have immediately took office. He did set up new people in various offices.
Key offices.
Yes. Meaning, therefore, that he is set to fight corruption. And I pity those who will be caught in scandals this time around.
Yes, Honorable Tandi.
Why I remain skeptical about the fight against corruption is because the president himself does not fight corruption. He relies on institutions. So which are the institutions that are...
How would you expect him to fight corruption?
By first of all, ensuring that the institutions that are mandated to fight corruption are strengthened, and then they are allowed to perform the people occupying those positions that are appointed on merit, not just people who are handpicked. I think that we must begin from there.
So you're suggesting that the people who are there are handpicked?
I don't think that. And I was discussing with with Ambrose before we came on air that when appointing people are being appointed into offices, the people being appointed are identified. They're identified based on their ethnic orientation, as an example, so that you find that the appointing authorities looking for somebody, going overboard to look for somebody whom they can work with. You know, this is basically the foundation of corruption. It begins at the point when people are being given positions. And sometimes I ask myself, why is it that people are uncomfortable with working with people they do not know? Why should you be seeking to have maybe 5 or 10 minutes as in from your own ethnic community, as an example? Or if you are a CEO, you are trying to bring people from your area to fill positions. If you are going to address corruption, and I have said this before, then the government must answer the question of national inclusivity. Because the cases of corruption I'm seeing here you clearly see a connection between the corrupt and the region where they come from. It means that these people speak one language, these people conspire. And then the other issue that I wanted to talk about is the issue that some people received money which they did not expect. How is that possible? How come my account wasn't credited? And those accounts
and some of those accounts were credited. Of course, there are questions that leave Kenyans, of course, very uncomfortable. And let me just quote page 16, an article that is here. And maybe, Philip Magal, I'll come to you. Don't be fooled by the drama. It is all politics. And unfortunately, there's a good number of Kenyans who probably feel that that is truth. That don't be fooled, it is all drama and politics. And the question here being, we do know that the NYS scandal, the previous one of 791 million shillings, basically there was hardly anybody found guilty.
Convicted.
Yes, and this could be another political drama where we somehow as Kenyans are treated to people being arrested. They're in jail right now, some of them waiting to be released on bail. If they're released on bail, that could be the end of that story.
That could be the end of it, which is partly true. From experience, like he said, that we know very well that most of these cases end up nowhere. I will say that it is only under Kibaki's regime where individuals were convicted and jailed. That was, I remember Kamlesh Patni and Somaya were jailed, but even then they got to spend all their time in Kenyatta National Hospital. But this time I think, you can get a feel that there is something different. The speed with which DCI and the DPP's officers moved. And remember, this time it's not the EACC handling these cases. We have a multi-agency approach. Previously, the issue has been, evidentiary.
Lack of evidence.
Yes.
The evidence is normally, you can poke holes into it.
Yes.
Although there's a question whether that evidence really is presented that way, it's intentional.
Yes, it could be intentional. But what I can say is that we do have the laws, we do have the institutions that if indeed we are serious, and I hope we are, I cannot speak on behalf of the powers that be. They know what they are intending to do. But if they are serious, then there is every mechanism necessary in place to have these people put away for good. And not just that, to recover the assets, as you can see. We have the laws that enable the government to reach out for the remotest item that was purchased with the proceeds of corruption. We can follow that property that was bought for somebody's grandmother and put in their grandchild's name somewhere up in the village. And it can be recovered. And that is that is what gives me hope.
Okay, let me look at the Daily Nation because it is again still to do with this scandal. And the headline on the Nation is, and finally, here are the NYS link banks. And Ambrose, as much as we are treated to this, shenanigans of arrests and all that, it is so, one would imagine it's so easy to trace some of this money. Let's just take the 59 million that was transferred into one lady's account. It is obvious where that money came from. There's a bank that is related. There are bank laws that are already in place that if a certain amount of money comes in suddenly, I mean, you can't open an account today and tomorrow it has 60 million. That is a red flag. How is it that we end up with no evidence, yet it's glaring to those of us who are even laymen, not even lawyers?
You end up with no evidence, basically because of who is looking. If you send me to look and bring the evidence, and I choose not to see, then I'll come with a report that there's no evidence. Remember that God himself regretted creating us. Okay? Because our heart is in... Oh, yes, Genesis 6, go and read. He regretted creating man because man's heart is inclined to wickedness. That's why we need prayers constantly. So the evidence is there. You don't need to be a lawyer. You don't need to be an expert. You just need to ask. When you, Kitonga, you go to bank today and a Standard Group has sent in 1 million shillings and you want to carry it in a bag, will you just carry it or they'll ask you a question?
The bank themselves will decline for me to withdraw it suddenly.
Now, when it is 50 from the public coffers, I think the questions are more. Because I see when we do transactions, ordinary transactions as convincing lawyers, you answer so many questions. You bring in the sale agreement, whatever. So the evidence is there, but deliberately this is a scheme. And that's why I am saying that there should be some bank being used as an example. Somebody, central bank coming down to these banks where our monies were distributed, there should be action so that next time the manager knows when you come and suddenly I got money from
you could be putting
Kenya Railway. They'll ask me, Mr. Weda, we have just seen 60 million from Kenya Railway. How did you get it? Okay, especially when I wanted cash. I would be able to say I rendered legal services in this case and so on and so forth. Because the laws are there, the obligations are there. But because it is 60 million, I would ask the bank manager, do you want a house in Buruburu or do you want these silly questions? Please make a choice. So I think this time with the heat, we will expect parliamentarians to discuss these corruption things in parliament and demand more action. So Honorable Tani, please don't go home. Go back to parliament, tell your colleagues we are saying. We want to see noise, commotion. We want to see you people throwing peppers and shoes on this. Then the heat, then banks will also go down. More people will be arrested. People will come from the village and say, suddenly we saw this child who was coming to school barefoot, now being driven in a Range Rover. Can you find out? And you'll find maybe it's related to Weda, and Weda is related to the PS, and the PS is related to the minister, and the minister. Please, we must continue with the anger.
They can be they're traceable. Let's look at page 6 of the Nation.
Let me weigh in on that, this issue. You know, I think the CBK governor is trying to suggest that the institutions to carry the burden for pilferage of this cash from the clients' accounts are banks. And I think, let me say as a banker, you know, I was a career banker before I joined politics. And
a good one.
I would like to say that there are a few cases where banks may have allowed themselves to be used by these corruption cartels, especially in the areas where it is reported that funds were wired into an account, and within a few hours,
it was withdrawn.
Withdrawals were done in foreign currency. Again, you see, you cannot withdraw foreign currency just like that. You have to make orders because dollars are kept. Most banks do not keep large quantities of dollars. In Kenya, for instance, dollars are kept by Citibank, mostly Citibanks, and most commercial banks order dollars from Citibank. So if, let's say you are withdrawing $1 million, as an example, you really must have made an order, and you should not have made an order if your account did not have the cash. You know. So in those cases, I can clearly see that some banks really reneged on their responsibility.
And this, of course, speaks to the fact that it's a network.
Yes, but again, I want the CPK governor not to fall back on banks, because central bank is the banker for government. They have the responsibility of releasing money, wiring money from themselves. They must seek for proper authorizations. Authorizations are done by National Treasury. You know, they are, I think, signatories in most accounts. And for funds to leave central bank, the National Treasury is aware. So again, we don't want this discussion to be taken to the banks. Let us see the role of CBK and Treasury in releasing of these funds. Then two, I have also seen...
Allow me to pause here. I want us to just take a short break as we release KTN home, and we'll start off there, because corruption is what we'd like to talk about this morning on State of the Nation. So just hold that thought. And today being also the National Day of Prayer, we're going to be hopefully seeing what's happening there as we prepare for that. So for now, we would like to release KTN home for Life and Style to begin. KTN News, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, it's time for the State of the Nation, and let's talk matters corruption. A quick reminder of the question this morning is whether you believe that genuinely our leaders are seeking divine intervention on the National Day of Prayer, or is it another PR exercise, stroke just, getting together, have some breakfast, and after that, everybody goes and business continues as usual. So for now, we take a short break. KTN home, we say goodbye. KTN News, we'll be right back with the State of the Nation.